Yesterday, Sayadaw was preaching on how to report properly by noting on the primary object. As Sayadaw was given the guidance, if you are able to note the primary object or unable to note. If you are able to note what you know or what you understood, you have to report to the teacher precisely. If not, if unable to note, then what are the present occurrence, how you know, to what kind of object you have to report to the teacher. So in that manner, Sayadaw was guiding to the yogis in yesterday's preaching. So as they were guided, this morning when the yogis have to report to Sayadawji, then they were reporting in the guided manner. So as they are reporting to the teacher in a guided manner, it becomes an effective part for the yogi as well, because the teachers who had been helping to the yogis with loving kindness and compassion, so in that way you are helping to both the parties, to the teachers as well to yourself. So Sayadaw explained that if you are reporting in that manner, as and vice versa effect, you become a dutiful yogi by reporting in a proper manner. So as they were reporting to Sayadawji this morning as guided by Sayadaw how to report, when Sayadaw heard as they were reporting in a systematic manner, Sayadaw was very happy to hear about them. And Sayadaw also liked to be happy more in the future days. So if they are able to report in that manner, that means they are not saying anything that what they think they have seen, so the yogi have saved time. Only they are reporting what they did really see. That is the real practical work. So in that manner, if a yogi is reporting, as one is reported, a yogi is reported as guided by, and the teacher too is helping in the same manner. So in that way, as a vice versa effect, making a benefit to both the parties. While the beings have the opportunity to learn the Buddha's teaching and to establish oneself, to increase our wisdom and to practice in the high esteem practice, in the preparatory stage, in accordance with Buddha's guidance, Sayadaw have announced the word that is Paṇḍitā. That is, when we are cultivating our mind or bhavana, there is a great destruction to our mind in the line of our practice. That is the sluggishness or laziness from our mind. Our mind is not energetic. There is no power or absence of dynamism from our mind. So that is, if Sayadaw have to say directly, it is China Metta. That is sloth and torpor. This sloth and torpor, or heaviness and sleepiness and drowsiness, should be absent in the line of our practice. So in the line of our practice, we must be able to dispel this sloth and torpor. How they can overwhelm on one is when we are following to note, for example, to the rise and fall of our abdomen. After a while, we become sleepy or drowsy, or we cannot keep our mind on the object. That is because it is influenced by clumsiness or heaviness or cloudiness from our mind is getting the upper hand. So as much as this is getting the upper hand, then we cannot note it properly onto the object. So that's why it becomes not only the inner enemy to oneself, but it becomes a destroyer to one. So as for one who do have this kind of laziness or sluggishness in one mind, whenever we come to practice bhavana or mental cultivation, we don't want to do it at all. Or even if we are trying to do so, however we are trying just superficially and not energetic enough in this practice. So there is no accumulation of concentration nor wisdom that it should be obtained in the due course time of your practice. That's why Sayadaw says, however they are practicing, maybe in this center or that center and so forth, but they become a chronic yogi. As a chronic means only they are taking their time long, but they are not progressed in the practice of meditation. Why they are like that is, Sayadaw says, it is due to the lack of energy as well. They are not awakened. So as for one, in the practice of meditation, to reach to a certain level or come to the completion of this practice is, it is hindered or obstructed by this kind of laziness or clumsiness. So to eradicate these laziness and clumsiness or the obstructive mind, that's why from the beginning, as expounded by the Lord Buddha, Sayadaw says, we must free our mind from this laziness and clumsiness, as saying as Paṇḍitā. So reminding these points to yogi is, it is not a kind that because the teacher wants to torture them. It is the kind that because the teacher wants yogi progress fast. When this laziness or clumsiness can overwhelm on you is, it is connected to the point that in your practice, if you like to keep comfortably to your body posture, although you are in good health, you like to lean with something behind you, or you want to put underneath your body or to underneath your knees and so forth. In that way, you want to keep comfortable much and more, although you are in good health. That means the way you have to concentrate in the practice become less, or it become weakened, and the necessary power that needed to be done at that time is also weakened. That means you have the retraction from your mind, so that you don't want to keep your mind attentively and energetically, because you also worry that there is an anxiousness in your mind that if I have to make an effort much, would I be tired or so. So in that way, you relax yourself too much. Or at times, you may be knowing a bit a dim kind of understanding in the practice, and you also think these are the real knowledges or real thing, and you have a misconception. So not only this misconception occurred in one, sometimes you write down notes. These notes are, some are not the realities they have came across in the practice. So whenever they report by reading the notes, the Kammatthana Sariya or the teacher knew they were not exactly reporting what they should have found. But as for the teacher, however he knew, Sayadaw says, for the meantime, as the time of practice here is still short, so that's why Sayadaw says he has to follow the attitude of the yogis. What Sayadaw wants to remind us is, though we are healthy, if we are trying to ease off our body as much as possible, then that is the connected nature to lead one to have laziness and drowsiness. As for our Lord Buddha, to attain his Buddhahood, when he practiced, he requests only the 8 handfuls of grass from the grass cutter, and he spread on the earth, and he sat on it and practiced. As for our Lord Buddha, before he attained the Buddhahood, he was a prince. As a prince who lived in the palace, how soft and delicate he would be. But as he had a very strong determination that until and unless I attain the Buddhahood, I am not going to give up. So because of that strong determination, although he sat on the 8 handfuls of grass, there was no difficulty for him to practice, and he attained Buddhahood. What Sayadaw like to stress is, even Buddha, as a prince, how delicate and soft he would be, but sitting on the 8 handful of grass and practice, and even Buddha could attain the Buddhahood. How about the nowadays yogis? As for the yogis now who are sitting on the cushion, this is more comfortable and at ease than sitting on the grass on the earth. So if you are sitting on the cushion, and yet if you want to add on so many cushions, or you want to put some pillows underneath your knees and so forth, actually they are not necessary. So as for the yogi or a Dhamma practitioner, whoever want to pursue the Dhamma practice, their way of life should be easy and should have less necessities than others. As we have listened, we should come to understand that this laziness or sluggishness is our inner enemy, and this is a very strong destroyer or the enemy within in us. So to dispel or to fight against this inner enemy, we need to fight with appropriate opponent. If we are able to fight with appropriate opponent, then if the opponent Dhamma nature got the upper hand, then we can eradicate this laziness. These opponents are vitakka, that is your application of your mind onto the object, and the second is your brave effort or the tremendous effort. If you can compile these two in your mind, or have these two in your mental powers, and as they are strengthened, spontaneously you will be eradicating this laziness and sluggishness in your mind. So that's why, as Sayadaw stressed, if you are able to do so, as the word implies in the beginning of the discourse, as Paṇḍitā, that means you must be free from laziness, and that phrase will become meaningful. Once our mind sets in with laziness, then there is no alertness in our mind. Our mind is not energetic. There is no bravery, not dynamic. So whenever we have to face with any kind of difficulty, then our mind cannot proceed further and retract it. That means our mind, once retracted, it is contracted inwards. So because of no bravery, it never blooms to counteract with any kind of the object that one has to observe too. So that's why Sayadaw explained, to keep that retracted mind to be more energetic and to be more active and to spread on the object is, we need to focus with, that is vitakka, from our mental property. This vitakka has the power of activity and it aims on the object. That's why whenever we have to know, Sayadaw guided us, we need to have the right aim and right piercing into the object. So if one moment, if you can do in that manner, in that way of practice, then your mind active. That's why Sayadaw stressed that he asked all the yogis, whenever we note, we should have the right A with right piercing from our mind. This is the point Sayadaw says. He didn't say just by himself, but Sayadaw had been telling us or guiding us in accordance with Buddha's teaching. Whenever we focus our mind to the object, then when there is no aim and no piercing to the object, there will be no energy in ourselves, as well there will be retraction in our mind. That means it looks like our mind have no power at all or no energy at all. If the mind have no energy, then because the mind is still and weak, then the body also still and it won't be inactive. So this laziness or sluggishness in our mind become an internal enemy. As it is an internal enemy, not only an internal enemy, but the power of that internal enemy is also very strong. How strong they are? Because all along our life, in this life as well in the past, they were overwhelming in our mind. So that's why whenever we have to fight, supposing a weak one has to fight against the stronger one, then the weak one has to use his wit. If he is not using his wit, then he cannot win the stronger one. So likewise, when the laziness in our mind is a strong enemy in us, we need to grow the opponent or the opposite Dhamma nature in ourselves. To have a strong growth of this opposite Dhamma nature is, whenever we practice, example to the rise and fall of our abdomen, we need to note it straightforward or in a direct manner with plunging manner. If we are noting in that way, then if we can note it in that manner, in 1 second if we note so, that is the one moment you are fighting against our laziness and sluggishness. If we are able to do so for 1 minute, there are 60 strengths of our mind power to fight against the laziness. As it goes for 5 minutes at 300 times and 1 hour for 3,600 times. So if you are able to oppose this laziness with the opposite Dhamma nature, if you are able to oppose for a short while, then for a short while you have a little of this opposing power. If you can oppose for a long time, then you are opposing with strong power. Now Sarah explained to another mental power, that is the viriya or effort. This effort, if to stress as a direct word, is bravery. You are brave to fight in this meditation field. So when we come to take up this Dhamma practice, we have to abandon all the sensual pleasures which were left behind. And also, while we are in the due course of practice too, we have to abandon the comfort and ease of our body in our practice. But instead, while we are noting so, then we try to change our body posture because of too much of pain or so, then we are trying to make ease to our body. So why we did that is because we are scared or afraid of pain. Not only we are afraid of pain, but also we are afraid of death too. That means we have no bravery. We lost bravery, not brave anymore. Because while we are contemplating the pain, then although we make an effort at first, but we note as much as we note, the pain is getting worse and we cannot note it anymore. So we become soft and we wanted to give up and we wanted to ease off this pain nature. So that is the kind we have to face with laziness. So in the practice of this Dhamma, before we take up this Dhamma practice, we have sensual pleasures. While we are in this practice, we needed to abandon the sensual pleasures. And while we are in this practice too, we must have the aim that however it hurt to our body and life too, I would never care for it. With that bravery and decision, we have to practice. So if we are noting in that manner, to each and every occurrence, we will be able to note continuously. If we are able to note continuously, means we become energetic and dynamic in this practice. So that is the power of viriya or effort. This effort has the power of overwhelming on the laziness, but vitakka is only the opposing nature. Sayadaw explained the bravery nature of viriya or effort. To accumulate this viriya or effort in one is, we need to cultivate from these mental properties. For example, while we are noting in the sitting posture, there will be unbearable sensation in us. There are lots of itchiness from face or from all over, or any kind of unbearable pain or other unpleasant sensation will be there. However, we are noting, but all along our life, as a human nature, we live with ease and comfort. So that's why whenever we have to face with any kind of difficulty, we don't want to fight against it. We want to avoid on that condition. So that's why we want to give it up. If we can strengthen viriya or effort in ourselves, the function of the viriya or effort will come to work out. That is, however much the difficulty is there, then we will come to note on it or fight on it with a great grin or a good grin in us. So that's why in this practice, only when we are firm and when we are strong enough to fight against all the opposite components, then we are able to practice well in this meditation. But if not, if we are not firm and weak, or whenever we have to meet with difficulty, we want to ease off and give it up, then we cannot pursue properly. So that's why Sayadaw explained, because one has to practice firmly in this practice, because of that no one will get sick. Because of this kind of firm practice, no one will die. But instead, there are people or incidences, because of the due firm practice in Dhamma, they even get cured from the illnesses. So Sayadaw reminds us that it is very important to be brave in the practice of this meditation. So whenever we meet with any difficulty, our mind doesn't want to produce any energetic power. So that means our mind is weak and it is lethargic. That means our mind is like an old house. For an old house, then it can break down at any time. But when you give a support or renovate to these old houses, then they will become firm again. So likewise, whenever we meet with any difficulty, we don't need to give it up. We shouldn't give our hands up. We must fight against it. So with the presence of viriya or effort, our slackened mind will become firm. It will be strong. So that is the power of viriya or effort. So there is abandoning of retraction and contraction from the laziness. Just like in any experience, if you have had one kind of experience, winning on any kind of work what you are doing, then you become more brave. Likewise, in this practice of meditation, whenever we meet with any difficulty, if we are firm and able to fight against it, then we become more brave. So to be brave enough, it is very important, Sarah repeat again that, it is very important to cultivate or culture viriya in ourselves. In each and every second, if we are able to cultivate our mind, then with these powers in our mind, then these powers in our mind will strengthen in us, and the mental development that are developing time and again as a new one, and the new mind are becoming stronger and they are in good strength. This is similar to an example in our body. In our body too, we need to have strong matters of physical parts in ourselves. Every day we need to put in different kinds of nutriments as well different kinds of vitamins. So when these nutriments and vitamins are in your body, it will spread all over and makes a healthy and powerful matters are developed in your body as the new ones. So likewise, when we are cultivating our mind, if we can cultivate through this practice, our mind becomes strong, sharp and powerful with this practice. That means we are nurturing our mind with mind nutriments. So if one is able to have the distinguished or powerful bravery in oneself, then you can see the immediate effect in one. The immediate effect is you will have a strong power because of your strong power in your mind, you will have a knowledge in this Dhamma practice. But contrary to this, if you are unable to do so, then you can be disparaged by others that he is a lazy person or he is not a useful person, etc. So in that way, you can be blamed by other people. As for the yogi who is trying in this manner with a faultless nature, then he is trying as much as possible. So he becomes a praiseworthy person by the teacher especially, and also he is not blamed by the teacher. And also he is not blamed by the other fellow yogis or the friends. This time what we are doing is, we are building or accumulating in our mind with wholesomeness. At that moment, our mind is freed from greed, anger and delusion. Greed, anger and delusion are always strive for one to have akusala or unwholesomenesses in one. While we are in the guard or in the guardianship of these mental powers, at that time we are abandoning these impurities of greed, anger and delusion. Abandoning, although this word has been used, actually at this time it is not a real abandoning. It has no chance to develop because of a good protection or a guardianship has been done by the mental powers as explained as the two qualities in the beginning of this discourse. So there is no unwholesomeness. Only the wholesome mind, one after another, are cropping up in our mind. In that way, our mind is faultless and wholesome mind are increasing, and we are propagating this line of wholesomeness in ourselves. That means we have stronger concentration and mindfulness in us, so this mind stamina becomes faultless and pure or purified. This purification and faultless or blameless condition is arise in one, then your mind is free from all the impurities or any kind of flaws in your mind. So if your mind is freed from these impurities, then Sayadaw explained that we should think it over again. If our mind is freed from these impurities, our mind becomes pure and wholesome and strong, and how wonderful to observe to oneself. But on the other hand, if our mind, supposing if it is overpowered with greed, anger and delusion, then restlessness can be developed due to greed, or restlessness can be developed due to anger, or maybe due to delusion. That means we are having akusala or unwholesomeness. Because our mind is guarded with these mental powers and we have flourished with these purity or purification, our mind is having kusala or wholesomeness. In our mind to have this wholesomeness all the while, be in our mind to have this wholesomeness is done by these two mental powers, vitakka and viriya, then even as an immediate effect, yogi can realize to oneself how this mental behavior in you is arising as a new mind nature, and connectively you also will develop new matter nature. So you will be seeing the distinguished nature from mind as well to the matter. Sayadaw explained, as Buddha expounded, as for the lazy and the brave, how one would lose and how one would succeed, it is vividly shown or vividly explained. So as for kusita, or the lazy person, or the lazy being who is tiresome every now and then that person has to live with suffering. Why one has to live with suffering means because all the while the mind is swelled with kama vitakka, that is craving to sensual object from seeing, hearing, smelling, etc. All the while one always wanted to and crave all these sense objects. Or maybe at times one's mind will be covered up with ill will or vyabhata. In any kind of anger, wanted to destroy this and that. So in that way, if your mind is covered up with ill will, then that person has to stay in with suffering. So that's why if a being mind is covered up with crave to sensual pleasures, or maybe with ill will, then they are called as papa. That is, that these nature make that being an inferior kind of being. So if one's mind is overwhelmed with kama vitakka, crave to sensual object, or vyabhata vitakka, or with any kind of ill will, anger or any kind of ill will, or vihimsa vitakka, that is, you want to hurt or destroy other people's property or other beings, then as much as these impurities are overwhelming in one, then this one also has a laziness in one, then for that mind, how can we consider that it is a pure mind or it is an high esteem kind of mind? So as to the opposite nature, it is important for one to discipline from bodily behavior, from verbal behavior and from mind. But contrary to this, if one's mind is overpowered with these impurities, there is no circumspection to body, speech and mind, and these he will be failing to do so. That is why he is losing to train oneself the high esteem kind of sila, samadhi and piññā, that is the morality, concentration and wisdom training. To become as a real human being, it is essential for one to train oneself with sila, samadhi and piññā in the training of morality, concentration and wisdom dispensation. If one is lacking in these three noble training, then when there is breakage in sila or precepts, your conduct becomes misconduct. And once your samadhi or concentration is weakened or not present, you are unable to withstand whatever the kind of the life waves what you have to encounter. If you have no wisdom, you are unable to withstand any kind of goodnesses and badness in the lifetime. That's why whenever we encounter any kind of condition, our mind reacts or oversensitive to the nature swiftly and very rapidly. So for that kind of weak mind, whenever we are facing with all the goodnesses in life, then we become so agitated. You are uplifted and you cannot withstand all the goodnesses in life. As well, when we have to encounter all the miseries or misfortunes in life too, then we even threat to ourselves, and we are very sad and we cannot withstand it properly. So in that way, we drain ourselves down in the life. As for one to be able to withstand all these goodnesses and the miseries in life, we need to train ourselves with appropriate method or appropriate training. To train ourselves with appropriate training means sometimes we have to meet with any lovable or attractive object. We are not sensitive to it, we are not reacting to it. Whenever we have to meet with any hatred, we are not reacting to this dislike. So our mind able to stand firmly against like and dislikes. As well, whenever we have to meet with miseries of life, our mind unmoved. Or if we have to meet with all the goodnesses in life too, our mind is unmoved, our mind is neutral. So in that way, we will have a good balance of mind. If we will have this good balancing mind, our mind is unperturbed. That is the kind you are having self-benefits. Contrary to the above nature, as for one who do have viriya, that person with strong effort become brave. Because one's mind is filled with effort and brave, then one's mind is freed from the mentioned three miccha vitika, that is the three mentioned mental properties. So if your mind is free from the mentioned three types of mental properties, you have a blissful mind. That means you are freeing yourself as an inferior kind of type of people, and you have freed your mind from the influence from the impurities or from the evils. As for the person with viriya or effort in one's mind, not only one can stay in with blissful state, but also one is able to avoid all the unnecessities or the sensual object that one should avoid, one is able to avoid. However, one meets with sense object, because of the strong mental power with bravery, one can withstand and your mind is unmoved. If you are able to attain this kind of mental power, then your mind becomes collective. It becomes firm and still. Because it becomes collective, firm and still and sharp, so however you meet with goodnesses and miseries of life, your mind is unmoved. However you meet with lovable object, you are not moved to the likes. If you have to meet with hatred too, you are unmoved, not moved with any kind of dislikes. So in that way, your mind is in balanced state, because your mind is freed from the overpowering of greed, anger, etc. So if your mind is getting pure with these, freed from these impurities, your mind becomes mature and you are able to withstand to the positive and negative nature of life, and your mind is unsensitive or not reactive to the sense or the dislikes in life. And for one, however one has to meet with ups and downs of life too, then because of the maturity in mind and calmness in mind, then that mind is unmoved. So that is making that you are really making a benefit for yourself. So to attain this quality is, Sayadaw explained that you cannot accumulate this quality. Accumulating the balancing mind is not by the former kind of strength. That is, you are having the mental strength through speculation or reflection. It is not that kind. It is a genuine kind of bhavana bala. That is the strengthening mind power through mental cultivation. Only this is the kind which will guarantee one to accumulate stable mind and firm mind. So if one is having this kind of mind, you are really becoming a real human and you are really having a human mind. So if you are having this kind of real human mind, means your mind is tranquil and at peace. Now Sayadaw come to the conclusion of today's talk. So as we are having a good opportunity to practice this meditation, we should fix down in our mind this. Laziness is the great inner enemy. Not only laziness is the great inner enemy, it also destroys to oneself. So by fixing that point in our mind, we must be able to develop the opposing powers. What are the opposing powers were explained, and we must flourish and establish all these opposing power in ourselves, so that we must be able to threat and abandon all these laziness in ourselves. And Sayadaw bless, may you all be able to destroy all these inner enemies. And Sayadaw bless, may you all be able to destroy all these inner enemies. And Sayadaw bless, may you all be able to destroy all these inner enemies.